inshallah ta'ala. And on the back of this sheet we have some notes. And in these notes there are basically three, we should understand there are three groups of people. There are three groups of people. First of all, there are the prophets and the messengers. The prophets and messengers, they receive revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They receive wahi. This is revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as we said, His existence is something which is already fitri, it is dururi, it is beyond question. And the prophets, they came to direct the people to worship Allah alone. Right? So what they are doing is they know that the fitra is already in the people. So all they are doing is telling the people, worship Allah alone. It is a command that the people already recognize because the fitra is intact. And that was the foundation of the call of the messengers. The messengers never came and said, "Oh people, here's the proof for Allah's existence. Oh people, here's the proof for this and for that. Here's the proof that the universe is originated." They never came with this. Because the fitra is already in the people, it is intact. So the only thing that they need to be called to is to affirm their iman in Allah and to worship Allah alone. So the messengers came with wahi. They called the people to worship Allah alone. They brought with them barahin, ayat, and bayinat. The strongest, most powerful types of evidences. There are no philosophical evidences in the Quran. Like what you see people doing today that we'll mention from these fools and ignoramuses like Hamza, Tzortzis, Zakir, Naik, and all of the different clones you see of Hamza, Tzortzis on YouTube, all these people, misguided people. Right? The method of the Quran, as I said, is the most direct, most simple, most powerful of evidences. This is what the prophets and messengers came with. And we see that the evidences they bring is something that agrees perfectly with when a person uses his faculties of seeing and hearing. And when he uses his reason, sound reason, everything fits together. The revelation of Allah, and whatever is therein, it fits together with what we see and observe and the sound reason that we use. There's no conflict whatsoever. So this first group is the prophets and messengers. And we want to be from this group. We are the followers of the prophets and messengers. And in this ummah, the followers of the prophets and messengers in this field are the righteous salaf. As for the second group are the philosophers. What did the messengers bring? The messengers brought us knowledge of creation, that we are created. They brought us knowledge of resurrection. There's going to be a resurrection. There is a mabda'. There's a beginning of creation and there is a ma'ad. There's a return, a resurrection. And likewise they brought revelation. Right? So these are three foundations of the creation itself. There's creation, there is resurrection, and there is prophethood or revelation, whichever one where you want to put it. As for the philosophers, they reject creation. So irrespective of whether we are speaking of the philosophers of old, like Aristotle and the Greek philosophers, or whether we are speaking in the modern time now, where we have the philosophers of today, the scientists of today. So they reject creation, they reject prophethood, and they reject resurrection. These things are not real. These things don't exist. And what they claim is they say that the only knowledge which is true and correct and which is definitive is the knowledge which we make by observation, by making experiments, by reason. And this is the only real true instrument of knowledge. This is what they say. This is what they claim. And in reality, these people is that when you make this observation, when you make this experimentation, you have to make assumptions to begin with. In all of science, in every field of science, you have to make assumptions. And so therefore the conclusions you make through the experiments are only as good as the initial assumptions that you make. Keep that in mind, because all of what they claim about science is only as good as the assumptions that they make. And that's what all of science today is. It is basically conjecture built upon assumptions. Those assumptions lead them to design experiments in a flawed way. Then they think that those experiments have brought them certain knowledge when it is not certain knowledge. And that knowledge that they bring you is something that with your senses it is known to be false, with the physical senses. But they make you believe it is definitive certain knowledge. Let me just give you one example, because it's good to give examples so you can see the kind of thing that we are talking about. They say that the earth is revolving around its own axis at 1,000 miles per hour at the equator. Right? So if you're at the equator, you're going round at 1,000 miles per hour every day. Right? So the earth is in motion like this. Then they say that the earth is orbiting the sun at 67,000 miles per hour. So there's one motion going like this, and then 67,000 miles per hour we are going round the sun. Then they say that the sun itself is traveling around the center of the galaxy at 600,000 miles per hour, in excess of 500,000 miles per hour. Right? There's now a third piece of motion that is taking place. And then fourthly, the galaxies are allegedly expanding and traveling away from each other at phenomenal speeds. We can add a couple of million, maybe trillion, I don't know what it is, that the galaxies are expanding at, a few million, let's say to be conservative, miles per hour. So now we have 4 pieces of motion. Yet, mankind, for thousands of years, have consistently seen in the sky that the North Star is always where it is. That the stars are always revolving around in the same place. That when they fall in the horizon, they're always falling in the same place. Day in, day out, year in, year out. Right? That's why you have all of these things that were constructed by nations that came before. The Babylonians, the Sumerians, the Stonehenge is one of those things. It's actually a clock. That's what Stonehenge is. It's like a clock based upon the movement of the sun. Right? So how come we are seeing the same thing day in, day out, year in, year out? Century in, century out, millennium in, millennium out. Why aren't we, if we're moving this way and then that way and then a million miles that way and this way, how come we're seeing the consistent pattern all the time? Right? So your physical senses tell you one thing, and their conjectural science tells you something else. What are you going to believe? What are you going to believe? Do you understand? So this is really what is taking place. So we shouldn't be confused or deceived about anything that these people claim, whether it is about evolution, whether it is about astronomy, whether it is about the origins of the universe. All of this, as Allah says, in hum illa yaghunnun. They do but conjecture. It is conjecture. It is conjecture. So they claim, as we said, that this is the only way you can arrive at knowledge. This is batil. Do not believe this nonsense. As they say, the scientific method. They claim that this is the only way to arrive at objective knowledge. This is false. Because if that was true, why are you so divided amongst yourselves? Why is this one saying that the sun is 3 million miles away and that one is saying it's 93 million miles away? Why is this one saying that mutation and natural selection is the model of evolution? And why is that one saying, well, this is false, it doesn't work? Why are they fighting and arguing with each other? If it's definitive knowledge and brings yaqeen, why are they so divided? Why they have so many disputes? Why are they like this? And this is exactly what Ibn Taymiyyah said about the philosophers of old. That a proof that they're upon batil is the fact that whose aql are we using? Because this one says one thing, that one says another thing, this one says another thing, that one says another thing. Yet you people claim that this is definitive knowledge. It's ilm yaqini. Where's the yaqeen then? You believe something which contradicts that one. Where's the yaqeen? And the same thing today as well. That they're not divided amongst themselves and they conceal a lot of truths from the common people. Right? So, as we said, this is a second group of people. They believe that true knowledge can only come by the scientific method, observation, experimentation, reason, and so on and so forth. But as we said, that is only as good as the assumptions behind it. So, and at the same time, they say that what the prophets brought was just from their own imaginations. The prophets just invented things, and they told the people certain things to make them live happy, moral lives. This is how they treat revelation. So they deny there was creation, they deny that the prophets bring revelation from Allah, and they deny that there will be a resurrection. Right? So therefore, they obviously have to believe that matter is eternal. Matter has always existed. And they have different views amongst them. So now we have the prophets and messengers. Where does the ilm come from? Wahi. And we have the philosophers and the atheists and the other than them. What do they say? They say we have to abandon all knowledge, then build knowledge up from the beginning. We observe, we look, we make experiments, we make deductions, we make inferences, we refine it, and then, as we said, everything can only be as good as the assumptions that you make. Right? So that's what they're saying. Now we have a third group of people as it relates to this issue of Allah's existence. And this group of people are the ones which I mentioned to you at the beginning. They are the people who are known as the people of Kalam, Ilmul Kalam. And the first of these groups was the Jahmiyyah in the 2nd century, at the beginning of the 2nd century. So these people, they came along, and what they did is they took the method. Basically, these people were mixing with the non-Muslims. Ja'ad bin Dirham, Jahm bin Safwan, they were traveling to different lands, in Haran, to Damascus, mixing with Jews and Christians, going to Haran, mixing with the star worshippers, traveling in all these different places, mixing, arguing, debating, picking up baggage of other nations, of the Greeks, of the Sabaeans, picking up all this nonsense. And then as a result of this, they try to argue for Allah's existence, that the universe is created. Something which a person doesn't even need to know. As Ibn Taymiyyah said, that you don't even need to know that the universe is created in order to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not the condition. It's not required. But these people, they made it to be from the foundation of Islam itself. They made it to be the usulul iman and the usulul deen. Whereas what we know to be from the usulul deen is belief in Allah, His angels, His books, His messengers, the last day, and al-qadr. So they made it to be the foundation. And what they did is they took the baggage of those people, the philosophers, and they tried to use that baggage in order to prove Allah's existence. And they abandoned the book and the sunnah. And when they abandoned the book and the sunnah, and they went and they followed the ways and means of these people, they had to follow the argument through to its full logical conclusion. Right? If you use faulty goods, you are going to be led to conclusions which are faulty. Right? And this is why the Jahmiyyah began to deny that Allah is above His throne. And why, began to deny His names and His attributes, and began to deny that He will be seen, and began to deny that He speaks with speech, which is His attribute and not created. All of this issue to do with the names and attributes of Allah, where did it come from? It came from these people who try to prove something which does not need proving. It's fitri, it's in the heart, it's dururi. And then they made it to be the foundation of the religion, which it isn't, because the prophets never called to this method. And then they used a method to prove it, which is batil, which is false. And as a result of that, they were led to assault the texts of the Quran and the Sunnah. This is why they began to make ta'weel of the verses of the Quran and ta'til of the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is why when we study and look at these things, we have to appreciate these historical things that took place, because only then do things start making sense to us. And so they are the Ahlul Kalam, and they are the Jahmiyyah in the 2nd century, and the Mu'tazila who took from them. Then there was a Rafidah who got involved in this as well, called the Hishamiyya. Then there was Ibn Kullab in the 3rd century, the Kullabiyya in the time of Imam Ahmad. Then there was after them the Karramiyya, the Hanafis, they were involved in this as well. Then next century came the Ash'aris, and then the Maturidis, and then the Salimiyya. All of these groups are connected, and they indulged in this thing which is called Ilmul Kalam. Ilmul Kalam, it just really means philosophy. It means philosophy. Now, to help you understand what was taking place then, and likewise what is taking place now, is the example of people like, obviously everybody has heard of Zakir, Naik, and Hamza, Tzortzis. You've heard of these people? You heard of these people? Hamza, Tzortzis, Zakir, Naik? What these people, and the different clones of Hamza, Tzortzis you see on YouTube, there's lots of drones and clones that, mimic him. What these people are doing is no different to what those people did back in history. Because what these people are doing is they are taking the current philosophy and the current science, right, all of which is conjecture, like the Big Bang model of the universe, which is impossible. It's just, the Big Bang model is like a man with a broken leg and a broken arm and a cracked skull, and they're just putting patches on this man to keep it going. A patch on his head, this now is dark matter, and a patch on his leg, this now is dark energy, and a patch on his ribs, this is like superinflation. Right? The basic idea is batil. Right? But to keep it going, they are adding elements into this conjecture to keep it, to keep it look, to make it look as if it has life. Right? It's batil, it's false. So the point being that they are taking the conjectural sciences of the scientists and the philosophers and atheists and thinking they can argue for Islam using those flawed goods. And in doing so, they are doing more harm to Islam than they are actually aiding Islam. And likewise, they are confusing and putting shak in the minds of many people. Exactly what happened to those people, as Ibn Taymiyyah says, that when you look at these people like Al-Ghazali and Ar-Razi, who were from the Ahlul Kalam, and they came and they began to really think about these arguments, they realized, they became really confused. Because these arguments can prove the opposite. That the universe is eternal. That there was no act of creation. This was the nature of the argument, right? They became really confused. That's why you will see about these people in their writings. They became really confused at the end of their lives. In the same way, these people, like Zakir Naik, Hamza Tzortzis, and all these other people, what they are doing is they are setting up people upon a weak building. An undermined building. And all it takes is for something to shake and that building falls down, and that person's iman, that person will start doubting in his iman. They will start having shak. And there are people like this who are already out there, who after seeing these people being demolished because they engage in debates with scientists and philosophers like Lawrence Krauss, and they're trying to use the Quran scientific miracle argument, which really originates in Jamaluddin al-Afghani, that Batini, Shi'i, Rafidi, modernist Aqlani. This is where that really comes from. So they're using all of these conjectural, baseless methods, and they are aiding in the destruction of the foundations of Iman. Right? So the point being from all of this discussion is that there are three groups of people. There are the followers of the prophets and messengers who take revelation, the wahi. In the revelation there are ayat, bayyinat, barahin, the simplest, shortest, most powerful of methods, and they stick with them. And this is the foundation of their ilm. Why? Because the Khaliq, the Khaliq, the Creator, knows best His creation. Right? And then there are those people who are the philosophers, the atheists. And they have their sciences, they have their tools, they have their methods, they have their mechanisms, they have their philosophy. And that's what they use to understand the world around them. Most of it is conjecture. Most of it is conjecture. Especially about origins of the universe and things like that. It's just conjecture. Obviously about the physical workings of the universe, the method works very well. That's why we have washing machines. That's why we have airplanes. That's why we have, all the technology, because clearly there's something that's being done correct, right? So there's a type of science which is correct and useful and beneficial, but there's another type of science which is conjectural. It's just pure conjecture, And that is when they speak about the origins of the universe, the destination of the universe, the unseen, and so on and so forth. All of this is just pure conjecture. But they make it look as if it is certain knowledge. Right? So this is the second group of people. Right? Then we have a third group of people who believe wrongly that we can take the methods of these people because we are deceived by them. This is why it's happening. People like Zakir, Naik, and they have an inferiority complex. Right? They see, look at these people, the scientists, and they speak with such certainty, and they boast about the theories about the Big Bang Theory, and about evolution, and this and that, whatever, and all the nonsense. And they feel as if they have to mimic. They have to mimic these people in their methods and in their science in order to prove something that is from the foundations of Islam. So they make this huge mistake. Right? And then they start like Zakir Naik, for example, he says, that in the Quran, you say that, when did you come to know that the Big Bang was true and real? 30, 40 years ago. But in our Quran it was 1400 years ago. This is jahl from this fool. Right? So he's trying to bring an ayah in the Quran that the heavens and earth were united and then they were split, and he said this is proof of the Big Bang in the Quran. Right? And little does he know that the Big Bang is just a model. It's a model. If you go and look at the scientists and say this is just one model of many different models, right? And there are huge numbers of scientists that dissent from this model and say it is batil, it is false, right? And then as I said, it's like a crooked man with a bent rib, a broken rib, and a broken arm. It's mashed, right? And they're always inventing these new things to keep it going, right? Adding dark matter, adding dark energy, adding in superinflation. These are just they're making fools of people. Right? There's no evidence for these things. Right? So this man comes along, believes all of this, and thinks that he needs to interpret the Quran to fit what they are claiming of their conjectures. This is no different, for example, when a Jahmi comes and says, Ar-Rahmanu ala al-Arsh istawa, right? That Allah made istawa above the Arsh. He makes ta'weel of the ayah. He's trying to twist the ayah to explain away the meaning. This is the same thing that these people are doing. These people are taking ayat of the Quran to make them fit the conjecture of those people who are present today. Right? So is this clear to everybody? Is all this clear that we have three groups of people? A wahi from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ayat, brahin, bayinat. We have the philosophers, misguided, blind, no ilm, no huda, conjecture, assumption. Right? And through that they make conclusions which they do not know are correct. Right? They say there was no creation, it was eternal. They say there will be no resurrection. All of this is dhan. This is done on their behalf. Then you have a certain people who try to take that in order to prove this. And they don't achieve what they wanted to do. Right? Rather they just prove the opposite. And they undermine Islam. And so really they reject reason. They come out in the name of reason, but they reject reason. They oppose reason. And then they reject revelation. They claim that we're going to affirm revelation, and they end up rejecting revelation. Right? And that's exactly what these people have done. So this is the introduction. And now obviously the issue of Allah's existence, we don't really want to spend a great deal of time on this. But what we want to establish before we